Hello YouTube, it's Michael Gallacher, the media preacher, back with another video, and this time I thought I'd do a review of a film that I've been really looking forward to seeing all year, and after seeing it I have to say I feel a little bit underwhelmed by what I actually saw. The film I want to talk about is the new Star Wars film that's in theatres at the moment called Rogue One. And after seeing The Force Awakens and after being a huge Star Wars fan really since forever, I was excited about seeing this year's new film because I thought Disney did such a great job with The Force Awakens and with the way that the story was engaging. It was similar enough to A New Hope, but different, new and exciting. And it had the old characters coming back, which was really fun, but it also introduced new characters and a story that you want to know more about, that you want to engage with. And so it was a bit disappointing in some respects to me when I found out that this year's Star Wars film from Disney wasn't going to be the continuation of that story, but a prequel to the original Star Wars film, A New Hope. With that said, I was still excited about seeing it because I thought that Disney were taking the series in some really interesting directions and really making the most of it. But I think my main problem with this film is that after seeing it, it just didn't feel like a Star Wars film. And I've made some notes here about why I felt that it didn't feel as if it was a Star Wars film. And there are a number of key elements that I really thought were missing that are present in all of the other Star Wars films, including the prequels, which admittedly are not as good as the original three. I mean, they're not. Although A Phantom Menace, I would suggest, is particularly worse than Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. But the first problem with the new film is the score. John Williams has done the music for all of the previous Star Wars films, and his music is so integral, it's almost part of the fabric of the films. Without that score, without that music, the films would feel completely different. And I think that that theory is really exposed by this film, because this film doesn't have a score by John Williams. It does use the Star Wars music right at the end, but it doesn't use the Star Wars music, from memory anyway, having seen the film once, actually in the film at any point. And the score that accompanies the film feels very sort of pseudo John Williams. It's like someone trying to do John Williams, which is precisely what I think it is. And I think that that really stands out like a sore thumb. And as I was watching the film, not knowing that John Williams hadn't scored it at that point, I was thinking the soundtrack, the musical cues, it's not engaging, it's not as exciting as it normally is. And so I stayed at the end of the credits just to see who had done the score, and it was by someone completely different than John Williams. The score's not bad, it's just not John Williams, who is really fantastic at what he does. And I think that his absence in this film really hurts the feel of the film and a part of the emotion of the film as well. Going on to the emotion of the film, the story actually is quite interesting. It's how a bunch of rebels essentially steal the plans for the Death Star, and then explains why, it leads into, the first Star Wars film, A New Hope. And the story is quite good, but I felt that the film was a bit long in places. I almost felt myself wondering how much longer certain scenes were going to go on for, when we were going to progress the film. It felt very slow and very badly paced. And I know that the film, I hadn't read a lot about it prior to seeing it, but I know that the film had had some problems and had actually been subject to some extensive reshoots. And I think maybe the pacing of the film is symptomatic of that problem. I don't know if the film was improved as a result of the reshoots or not, but what I can say is that the finished product that I saw in the theatre did feel very long in places. I think another one of the problems with the film as well that I had is that other Star Wars films in the past have always had really engaging characters for the most part. You think about Han Solo, that's an iconic character, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, C-3PO, R2-D2, but the lead characters are always really engaging. And in this film, I didn't feel that the lead characters were particularly engaging. I don't know that I invested in them in the same way that I've invested in previous Star Wars characters. And I don't think I cared about them in the same way either. Because I think that with the previous films, you care about all the characters. Even the prequels, the characters are actually reasonably good. But certainly in the original Star Wars films, the characters are fantastic and you are totally invested in them and what's going to happen to them, and you care about them when they're in peril or when they're in danger. But in this film, I didn't feel that way, and I don't know why. To some respect, it might be the actors and the actresses that were cast in the film. I didn't feel that they did a brilliant job. And the one thing I noted, and I spoke about this to my wife, when we saw the interviews that they were doing to promote the film, I felt that in all the interviews, they were almost reading from a script. Here's what we've been told by Disney to say about this film. I didn't feel that they had a real passion for the material. And that, to me, came across in their performances, actually throughout the film, which is perhaps part of the reason that I felt the film felt a little bit laboured in some respects. One of my other problems with this film is that it didn't feel like a Star Wars film. I mean, I go into it with very high expectations. I didn't hate this film at all, but I don't think I loved it either, and I was certainly disappointed by it. But it didn't feel like part of the Star Wars franchise. Part of the reason, as I've said, is the fact that it doesn't have that iconic John Williams score. But another part of the reason is the fact that it's missing certain things that you expect from every Star Wars film. Now, for instance, it starts with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But then you expect a Star Wars film to go straight into that brilliant music and have an opening crawl. This film doesn't have that. And if you don't have that, to me, that's something that's so important to any Star Wars film. It has to be present. And if it's not, then it changes the mood and the feeling of the film going into it. And I think that was a huge problem. I also felt that the prologue in the film was quite badly edited. For those that haven't seen the film, I won't spoil it, but you start off in one time zone, essentially, and then the film cuts almost, I think, 15, 20 years later, without really being particularly well edited to show you as to why it's cut. It just didn't work, in my view, anyway. I know a lot of people are going to love it and are going to disagree with me, but I didn't feel it was quite up to par with some of the other films. The other problem I had with it is that certainly in the first sort of half an hour of the film is all over the place. As I say, it starts off in one time zone, then it moves forward, but then you're on this planet, that planet, and the next planet, and you're introducing this character and that character. But I was almost struggling to keep up with where I was for the first sort of 20 minutes of the film, which for a Star Wars film I shouldn't be doing. And I don't know if that comes down to the fact that it was poorly edited, or that these reshoots were done, but it felt almost difficult to keep up with for the first 20 minutes or so. Another one of my big problems with the film was the villain. The villain's doesn't really do anything but throw his white cape around and storm up and down. He didn't do anything that was really that frightening, I didn't think. The main villain of the piece, of course, is Darth Vader, who is in this film. And when you start going into the things about the film that really work, Darth Vader's definitely one of them. And for me, he rescues the film, because he's only in it for a very short period of time, but for the scenes that he is in, it does then start to feel iconically Star Wars. And actually, the most exciting part of the film is the part where Darth Vader really unleashes his fury on various characters. And that really got me smiling as I was watching it and really enjoying the movie for the first time. But that happens so late into the film, it's almost at the end of the film by the time that happens. It was almost too late. I think it was going to be difficult to rescue the film in my mind at that stage. The other big problem with the film is that Disney have sold the new Star Wars films on being very practical effect heavy, which is a great thing. But they are using CGI effects to supplement the practical effects. And for the most part, all of the effects in this film look absolutely stunning and look fantastic. And it's one of the things about the film, together with the Darth Vader scenes, that I thought was brilliant and really works well. But I think they've taken it a step too far with this film, because one of the things that they've done, I think this is no secret, everybody that knows anything about the film knows this, is that they brought Peter Cushing's character from A New Hope back to life using a digital creation in a computer. And for me, it was distracting because it didn't quite look right. I think that you can get away with CGI, certainly with the level that they're doing it at now, because the eye is tricked. But when you're trying to recreate a human, I think perhaps it's more difficult to trick the eye. And I was definitely looking at those scenes, almost being distracted by the fact that it wasn't convincing me that Peter Cushing was really there. The voice isn't quite right, that's the first problem. But the bigger problem is the face doesn't look quite right. It looks like a computer game. And as soon as something looks like a computer game, for me it takes me out of the film, and that can really spoil the enjoyment. That happened to me with a number of other films that are quite old at this point but do look very dated. If you look at The Matrix Revolutions, some of the CGI in that film is absolutely terrible, and it takes you out of the story, it takes you out of the film, and you feel almost like you're looking at a computer game or an advert for a computer game, and you're expecting to see not actual gameplay written perhaps somewhere in the corner of the film. So that was a problem for me as well. So I just wanted to make the video. I haven't reviewed any new films at all, but I wanted to review this film because I had some quite strong feelings about it and I wanted to share them with you. So please tell me about what you think of the film, because I know that people are quite divided on this film. Leave me some comments in the comments section. I'll try and get back to you when I can. And if you enjoyed the review in the video, then please come back to it and subscribe to the channel. In summary, I think what I'd say about Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, is that it's not a terrible film. It's actually quite an enjoyable film. But as a Star Wars film, I'm not sure it works. And for the level of anticipation for a Star Wars film, I don't think it really meets your anticipated levels, because it just isn't as much fun as some of the other films in the series. So that's me, Michael Gallacher, over and out. See you next time.